Welcome to Radio B2B, the only truly free, unbiased and open internet radio platform for business in Africa. I'm talking now with Greg Schlegel, and Greg is chatting. He's talking to the SAPEX conference, which runs from the 4th to the 7th of June. And he's talking on what I think is an absolutely critical topic, which is supply chain risk and resiliency. Greg, thank you so much for agreeing to chat to me.
My pleasure, Doctor. What can I do for you?
So, Gregory L. Schlegel, can you please tell me who you are?
I am founder of the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium. It's a group of 19 companies that essentially support our book's vision of supply chain risk management. I teach supply chain risk management in Lehigh University in Bethel, Pennsylvania, here in the States. I also teach enterprise risk management at Villanova University near Philadelphia in the States. So it's a nice mix and merge of threads, both pure risk and operations supply chain risk. The consortium basically supports our new book. We have a vision in our book from that supply chain risk management is end-to-end, from customers all the way to suppliers to suppliers. So essentially, I'm a practitioner. I've worked for about 5 different Fortune 100 companies in the States across multiple industries. So I'm a supply chain practitioner. I'm an academic, and I worked for 8 years with IBM as a supply chain executive consultant. That's who Greg is.
All right. So you say that never before has uncertainty, complexity, and risk been growing more exponentially than now. And that's why you talk about supply chain risk and resiliency to your various audiences. What is it? What is the central message that you're hoping they'll walk away with?
Well, we've kind of looked at it this way. The book, we've put the book out, and it's about 2.5 years old. And it was a lot of, it's a survey book. It was a lot of thoughts about what we had read, what we researched, what we were teaching at Lehigh University. And the book basically is the how-to, meaning if you feel that there are risks in your supply chain, here's tools, techniques, and methodologies that we feel at the moment, back in 2014, you could identify risks, you could assess risks, you could then mitigate those risks, and you could manage those risks. Now, that theme in the book is about 3 years old. We know a lot more tools and techniques have come on stream around the globe, and actually our thoughts now are resiliency is the why. Why would you want to spend any time identifying, assessing, mitigating, and managing your risks in your supply chain, which most of them are global? The reason is resiliency. That's the why. Why do I want to do it? So that I can identify, assess, and if I experience a moderate to severe supply chain disruption, I have the tools, techniques, the flexibility, the agility, the methodologies to survive it and then thrive. Survive and thrive. You might be better off than your nearest competitor. That's why risk management is a relative game. You need to be faster than your nearest competitor. So the resiliency is the why. The supply chain risk management is the how. All right, and with all the tools, techniques, and methodologies. And one more reason why anyone should spend, I'll give you 2 statistics. One is if you experience a moderate to severe supply chain, essentially you can expect to see your shareholder value drop during that event, anywhere from 7 to 10%. And there's more bad news. If you're not prepared, even in a small to medium supply chain disruption, the average supply chain disruption is about $400,000 U.S. On average, companies across the globe are experiencing at least 10 or 11 of these events. That adds up to about $4 million U.S. a year to handle supply chain disruptions, and one other thing. Those folks who experience moderate to severe supply chain disruptions, basically 25% of those companies go out of business 15 to 18 months after the event. No one reads about that. And you might say, well, you're right. I don't read about that. Well, we have insurance people in our consortium that insure those manufacturers. They give us the information. That's a very sober thought. And the reason you don't read about those impacts is no company wants their brand name in a magazine or on CNN that basically says we weren't prepared and therefore we went out of business. A long answer to a short question, that's the compelling reason to act.
I'm talking with Gregory L. Schlegel, who is going to be talking on Monday, the 5th of June, 2017 at the SAPEX conference. He's talking about supply chain risk and resiliency, and as you can hear, it's a very sobering topic, an area that one needs to be thinking about. Greg, where does redundancy and, if you want, parallel supply chain systems, where does that factor into the models that you're talking about in terms of planning for redundancy so that if something goes wrong with your primary model, you have backup?
Yes, very good question. Most of the redundancy at the moment, from what we see in our engagements, our client engagements, and our research, basically revolves around the supply base. Organizations' supply base. What we tend to do, that's normally a good starting point for visibility, because visibility is very important to supply chain risk management. The redundancy tends to start in the area of supply base and suppliers. Whether, take a look at how many single source suppliers you have in your supply chain, how many sole source suppliers you have because of things like patents and so forth. So that is where almost all folks who have bought into the supply chain risk and resiliency journey, that's where they start with redundancy. And it's not an easy sell, because redundant suppliers who give you the same product, probably at different prices, it's an added cost. That is true. It adds to complexity. But if you look at supply chain through the prism of supply chain risk and resiliency and what's good for my organization as opposed to performance, that's where the redundancy begins in the supply base.
Greg Schlegel, it's absolutely fascinating what you're talking about. I look forward to hearing you speak at the SAPEX conference on the 5th of June, and I look forward to meeting you in person. Thank you so much for talking to me here on Radio B2B.
You bet. My pleasure, Doctor.
Go well. Bye-bye.
All right, cheers.
The Radio B2B Weekly News Review.